I ask you to give your full attention to our next speaker. I'm very happy that she's here. I got to hear a little bit and see a little bit of what she is going to share with you, and I was quite moved by it. Her name is Regina Bethencourt. She works in public relations and marketing for several organizations that promote women's development, including the Reginas Center, which is a women's leadership organization, and Girl Talk Incorporated, a group that's dedicated to creating sisterhood of women on college campuses, which is so important. She graduated from Catholic University of America right here in D.C. She lives here in Washington, D.C. metro area with her husband and her daughter, Isabella, and we are very happy to have her here. She does not stand in front of an arena full of people on a daily basis, so please give her your 100% attention and welcome Regina Bethencourt.
On January 12th, 2005, I got a call that changed my life. Hi, it's Dad. Your mom just delivered your baby sister. Mom's okay, but there's something wrong with the baby. She probably won't make it through the night. I was 14 years old, and I felt that my world was spinning with mixed emotions. I felt anger at my parents for having another baby, their 8th. I felt fear that our perfect family would now be handicapped, deformed in some way. And I felt a deep connection that I couldn't ignore, a connection to this new little sister, this new little life that I had never even met. Jeanette Isabella, my sister, was born with trisomy 18, a rare chromosomal condition similar to Down syndrome, but much more severe. Most babies with trisomy 18 don't make it to birth. Those that do usually die within the first year of life. When Jeanette was born by emergency C-section, she was immediately placed on life support because she came out of the womb and she didn't take a breath. After a day or so of watching the machines breathe for their little girl, my parents made the brave decision to remove life support and hope that she would live on her own. She did. Her tiny lungs moved in and out as she took her first step into life on her own. A few days after, my parents brought her home to meet us. The doctors had told them that they were bringing her home to make her comfortable. At any moment, her lungs could fail, her heart could stop, and she would die. When I met her, I was first struck by her smallness, her different physical features, and her peculiar breathing. And then I began to notice her contagious smile, her sweet demeanor, and her deep, piercing blue eyes that seemed to look right into your soul. I have to admit, this time was bittersweet for me. We had just uprooted our lives and moved more than 700 miles away from my hometown. My biggest worries were about making friends, fitting in, and starting high school. I felt weird enough being Catholic, being part of a large family. The last thing I felt I needed was to have a handicapped member of our family, especially one who wouldn't live more than a few months at best. I was angry. I thought, what is the point of a life like that? Wouldn't I be better off if she never existed? As we began to fold Jeanette into the daily fabric of our lives, I noticed something. I noticed how people were drawn to her. They stopped us everywhere, in the grocery store, on the street, on vacation, to ask us questions. Why is she so small? They would ask. Is there something wrong? We told her story over and over again. You could see their faces as we talked, at first stark with fear and sympathy, and then they would soften as awe, respect, and hope would creep around the corners of their eyes. People would flock to my parents too, feeling that because of their witness, my parents were a place of solace, where they could share their own stories of life and love and grief in miscarriage, stillbirth, or raising children with special needs. I noticed the strength and openness Jeanette brought out in those around her. I saw this especially in the way my mom poured out her whole life so that this little soul would be cared for. She gave up all of her sleep, pumping incessantly to keep a supply of milk because little Jeanette was too small to nurse. Many times I would wake up in the middle of the night and find her sleeping on the couch, simply unable to make it to her bed. Her exhaustion was so great. And still, she kept living, smiling, filled with a contagious joy that only comes when every second of your life is lived for someone else. I looked at my mother, heartbroken and frightened though she was, and I saw strength. I saw power. And I saw an unflagging spirit that would never give up despite the greatest of adversities. Talk about hearing a woman roar. My mother's example roared for me louder than anything I have heard before. Jeanette died on March 22nd, after living only 10 weeks with us. The seasonal flu passed through our family, and when it came Jeanette's turn, her tiny lungs and heart could not put up much of a fight. The funeral for this tiny 5-pound baby was standing room only. People poured in from everywhere, many who knew us and many more who didn't, who had only heard stories about the little girl that was born into an impossible life and the family who accepted her with love. It was her death that made me realize how small and narrow my original anger had been. It was her life that showed me how great and beautiful the world could be with a little hope and a little faith. Her dying filled me with sadness, but even more overwhelmingly with joy. Joy that I had gotten the opportunity to see her smile, look into her eyes, and feel her wrap her little fingers around mine. Her life, the one I had called a life without hope, filled me with so much hope and joy and love that I could hardly contain it. It's remarkable to think that she possessed the ability to have such an impact on my life and the life of everyone who met her without uttering a word. I carry Jeanette with me always, but the impact her life brought to mine came flooding back recently as I got married and found out I was pregnant with a little girl. There is an incredible uncertainty inherent in the process of life in the womb. And as I could feel my daughter kick and squirm and flip inside of me, sometimes I would think, am I ready for this? What if something is wrong with her? And my heart would be filled with fear. And it was in these moments that I thought about what Jeanette taught me and why I stand for life. Because the beauty of new life brought into the world and the privilege of being asked to serve as a bearer of that gift is so much bigger and so much brighter and more powerful than the most devastating of physical defects. I committed myself to loving my daughter, no matter her capabilities, her potential, or her future. And when she was born, perfectly healthy and beautiful, we named her Isabella in memory of the aunt that she would never meet, and the soul that had changed the world, changed my world, with just the briefest of moments here on this earth. Standing up for life can be terrifying and hard. The world around us tells us to seek comfort above all things, that suffering is medieval and should be avoided at all costs. We live in a world where we are constantly taught to seek approval in likes and retweets and shares. But when you choose to swim against the tide, to fight the current of complacency, and to do what is right, no matter the cost, the rewards are abundant. Today, when I look out into this sea of faces, I see thousands of individuals who are bright, young, and hopeful. I see bravery. I see strength. I see character. I see men and women who are taking on the challenge of fighting for those who have no ability to fight for themselves. Men and women who march year after year for lives that others have called optional. I see future mothers and fathers. Look around you. Some of you standing in this crowd right now have a capacity for strength that you haven't even begun to tap into. You are going to be called to be heroes, to be parents of children the world will find inconvenient and useless. And you will stand. You will rise. You will live out your life as an example that they will never forget of the joy and hope and love that exists in all life, no matter how weak. Because this is my generation. This is our generation. This is the generation that will demand respect for life because it will never back down. It will never give up on its mission, no matter how hard it gets. So today, I ask you, in memory of my sister, when you are faced with fear and you don't know where to turn, choose courage, choose love, choose life, and never give up that fight. Thank you.
Thank you. Please give a hand for Regina.